I knew that Ray liked to party, but this was a little too much. He was on the dance floor with a spaced-out look in his eye, dancing like he just stepped out of some 1980s music video. The people around him didn't seem all that put off, but they were probably almost as high as he was. Almost being the operative word in that sentence. Look, I get it. I like to party too from time to time. But you gotta be smart about it. You gotta know where your limit is. And I don't think that Ray knew his limit. I'd never actually been to this part of town before, but hey, there's a first time for everything, right? Ray and I had just closed the deal of our careers, and figured a little celebration was in order. I'd initially figured we'd just have a few drinks, and maybe meet some women. But when he broke out the molly, I wasn't gonna say no. And the next hour or so after that was fucking killer. Then, we'd ran into that dude at the bar. This guy was, well, he looked like he was on drugs, not like he sold them. He had messy hair, a grin that said, "I just farted," and I'm pretty sure he was covered in glitter. He was wearing a hot pink suit with a neon blue bow tie, on top of a regular black tie. Yeah, 2 ties. Anyways, he must have realized that we were also high off our asses, because as we took a seat at the bar, he came right over to us, wearing that "I just farted" grin and chatting us up. "Hey man, you two having a good time tonight?" "Fuck yeah, we are," Ray replied. "I fucking love your getup, man." "Oh, hell yeah, brother." The glitter man went in for a high five, and Ray reciprocated. "You having a party?" he asked. "Yeah, we just closed a fucking big-ass client." "Fuck yeah, we're having a party." "Oh man, then I've got just the thing for you. Check this shit out." Glitter Man reached into his suit jacket and took out a gunmetal gray cigarette case. He opened it, showing us a collection of small neon blue pills inside. "These right here? These are gonna kick your night up a whole other notch," he promised. "You want in?" Ray stared down at the pills. Man, I could see his eyes widening like a kid who just walked into a candy shop. "Fuck yeah, I want in," he said with barely a moment of hesitation. And that is when I stepped in. "Wait up, the fuck are these?" I asked. "It's a new thing. I've been calling it Blue Lagoon. Trust me, this is the shit. One pill and you're never gonna want to forget tonight. I got a buddy who swears this shit lets him see into other worlds." "How much?" Ray asked. "Tell you what, man. I'll hook you both up for $10 a pop." Ray started reaching for his wallet, but I stopped him. "Dude, we don't even know what this shit is," I said. "Come on, loosen your asshole and live a little, Jeff," Ray replied, pulling away from me. "Sorry about my friend, man. He just needs a few more drinks." "Hey, no worries." Ray handed over $20, and Glitter Man dropped 2 pills into his hand before taking off. "See you around," he said. And that was it. "You in this with me?" Ray asked, offering me one of the pills. I didn't answer, so he started making a ticking clock noise. "Time's almost up," he sang. "You gonna get the stick out of your ass and party like a man? Or are you gonna pussy out?" I took the pill, sighed, and put it in my mouth. "Atta fucking boy," Ray cried, and slapped me on the back before taking his own pill. "Thought for sure you're gonna go all fucking soft on me," he teased. "Go full Mackie from South Park. Drugs are bad, okay?" He laughed at his own bad impression of the show. He turned back to the bar, reaching into his pocket for a pack of cigarettes. "Hey, my buddy and I are gonna have 2 dry martinis," he said. "As dry as you can fucking make them." He popped one of the cigarettes into his mouth, and that was around the time I noticed that the world around me seemed off. I blinked slowly, looking around at the people in the bar. I could have sworn that I saw flowers blooming on their skin, but it was hard to get a look at them. They only ever seemed to be there when I wasn't looking directly at them. From the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something moving behind the dance floor. Some tall, wandering shadow I couldn't get a good look at either. I think that it might have looked at me, with eyes on stalks like some kind of slug, but I couldn't be sure. It disappeared completely when I tried to look at it head on. I looked over at the bartender, a relatively plain-looking brunette. She glanced at me briefly as she shook our martinis, and I swore I could see flowers growing out of her hair, wreathing her head in vibrant colors that were impossible to describe. I looked over at Ray, and he was staring at her too. I'm not sure what he was seeing, but whatever it was, it had to be beautiful. The man beside me had roses growing out of his eyes, and whenever he laughed, I heard a chorus of angels singing. He was holding a giant chameleon that he kept petting, and it was looking at me. "Think this is DMT?" it asked.
"Who the hell knows?"
said the man. His head was mostly flowers now. Ray absent-mindedly handed me a martini, and I took a sip. It tasted like heaven. It tasted like a fresh donut, right out of the oven, with the glaze still melty and warm. I wanted to cry from just how beautiful it was. A hazy mist swirled around me, lifting me up to new levels of paradise. As Ray and I went to the dance floor to join the party, I felt at one with the universe. A beautiful girl with flawless, dark skin danced with me. As we danced, I realized that my place in the cosmos was here. Right here. And then I saw it. Really, truly saw it. The grand tapestry of all things. It was right there in her eyes. Right there for me to see. An expanse of events, all seemingly unconnected, save for the fact that they contributed to some great, glorious final outcome. A perfect future for all mankind. For all that existed beyond mankind. Hundreds of lives. Thousands. Millions. Billions. Perhaps even an infinite amount. All moving in an enormous machine, working towards the completion of a single function. Pawns in a grand game, whose outcome had been determined outside of time. Every little piece would, in its own way, fall into place exactly when it needed to, at the moment it needed to. Each one carefully guided by a grand design that operated exclusively through others. An outside force that pushed them to trigger the events that would lead to the favorable outcome, and arguably, the only outcome. But there really was no big picture to be seen. The end result was something far less finite. It was a state of being, a higher state, a type of perfection that went beyond perfection. Oh, the knowledge of it burned so bright in my skull. I hugged the girl that I was dancing with, and we kissed. She told me that she was proud of me, before promptly dissolving into a cloud of butterflies. And as I watched them fly away, I laughed, knowing that they too were a part of the fabric of the universe. I admired the crowd dancing around me, basking in their radiance. They seemed to go on forever, and I could see every aspect of their lives in each of them. Their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. I loved each of them, and looked into each of their souls, looking at what the greatest possible version of them might be. From the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow. The same one from before, possibly? I looked at it, watching as it surveyed the crowd. Despite its darkness, I could see its shiny white teeth and beady eyes. The eyes shifted to me for a moment where they lingered, but the shadow didn't move. Water flowed around me, distracting me from the shadow again. Fish swam past me, daring me to chase them, and I obliged. They promised to take me to a mermaid and teach me how to live in the sea with them. Then I promptly threw up all over some poor girl who was just trying to dance. And after I apologized to her, I tried to explain to the fish that I just needed to sit down for a minute. But by then, they'd already turned into seagulls, and were just casually shitting on the dude they were sitting on. I stumbled over to one of the booths and collapsed into it, trying to catch my breath.
Would you like some cheese, sir?
Asked the sentient platter of cheese on the table underneath me. My name's Brie, said the Brie. I stared down at the platter before picking up a cube of cheddar and trying to eat it. For some reason, it tasted like a napkin. This was because it actually was a napkin. My skin felt cold. My hands were shaking a little. The music was way too loud and my mouth was dry. I looked up. There were no fantastical creatures around. No fish, no seagulls, no talking cheese. Just a normal nightclub. My head was kind of throbbing. I took out my phone to look at it. It had been about an hour since Ray and I had gotten our martinis. Had time really passed that quickly? Speaking of which, where was Ray? I looked around for him before finding him still on the dance floor, dancing like a goddamn maniac. He didn't seem to be coming down the way that I was. Maybe I'd puked up some of the drug when I'd vomited, and it had cut my trip short. Speaking of which, what the hell was that? DMT or something? I was pretty sure that I just hallucinated everything that had just happened. Those had to be hallucinations, right? I shook my head before trying to ground myself in the moment. I still felt dizzy and weak. I ended up going to the bar just to get some water, before finding another seat where I could rest for a while Ray partied his little heart out. And after another hour, I started thinking that maybe something was wrong with him. I noticed that he only seemed to take a break once. And when he did, it was only to head to the bar and get another hard drink. While he was there, I noticed him slipping a familiar gunmetal gray cigarette case out of his pocket. He downed some pills from inside and chased them with a generous sip of whatever he'd gotten. Then, swaying like an idiot, he put the cigarette case back in his pocket and lumbered back to the party. That idiot. He must have bought the whole fucking case off that weird guy we'd seen earlier. It was one thing to try some weird new drug like a dumbass, but this was insane. I considered going up to him to ask him just what the hell he'd been thinking, but given how out of it he probably was, I knew there wouldn't be much point to it. So I resolved just to watch him and make sure he got home safely like a responsible friend/coworker. I didn't really want a repeat of the Vancouver incident, where I'd had to drag him crying like a baby out of a convenience store at 4 a.m. because they were out of gummy bears. He'd promised me that it would never happen again, and up until now, I'd held him to that. I guess, if nothing else, Ray didn't seem to be violent or anything when he was high. The bouncers in this place looked pretty tough, though, and I really didn't want to have to watch them beat the crap out of him. And it wasn't until around 2 a.m., when the party was dying down, that I started to notice Ray acting strange. Well, strange compared to the way he'd been acting for the rest of the night. He'd seemed more unstable on his feet, and seemed less interested in dancing now. He kept looking around frantically, and I saw him take out the cigarette case to look for more pills. I figured that this was probably the time to get up and stop him. Hey, relax, man, I said, coming up to him and stopping him from taking more of those pills. Take it easy, all right? He looked over at me with wide, bloodshot eyes as I spoke to him. Jeff? He asked in a small voice. Yeah, it's me. Put the pills down. How many of those have you had? I took the case from him and looked inside, only to feel my stomach sink a little when I realized it was empty. It suddenly occurred to me that I probably should have been watching him closer, to make sure he didn't take all of the goddamn mystery pills. And I quietly kicked myself for not thinking of that sooner. Well, shit. You feeling okay, bud? I asked.
Afraid.
He slurred.
The universe is wrong.
His eyes suddenly widened, filled with a horror that I'm not sure I could properly describe.
There.
He pointed at something over my shoulder, and I looked. Behind me sat the unknowable terror that lurks in all places when something ceased to exist and only absence remains. Absolutely fucking nothing. Maybe we need to get you to a hospital, I murmured.
No hospital,
He said.
Please. Jeff, just get me somewhere safe. Please.
Yeah, I was definitely taking him to a hospital. I'd already made enough dumb decisions for the night. I didn't really feel up to making one more. Alright, let's get you someplace safe, I said with a sigh. I took out my phone to call us a cab. Come on, Ray. He grabbed at me like a scared child as I led him out of the club, jumping at every shadow that we saw on the way out. So, what exactly did he take? The nurse asked me. She had a sort of deadpan, matter-of-fact tone, and barely even looked at me, while Ray screamed bloody murder in the next room. I gotta say, I wasn't exactly beaming with pride, as I confessed to the nurse that Ray and I had partied in defiance of every 1980s anti-drug PSA we'd grown up with, but it needed to be done. I think the guy called it Blue Lagoon, I said. I don't know how many he had, but it was a lot. Blue Lagoon? The nurse asked. That's a new one. Yeah, I never heard of it either. I took one of the pills too, I said. I was seeing shit for about an hour before I came down. Like mermaids, talking cheese, flowers, that kind of stuff. So it's a hallucinogen? She asked. Yeah, I've never done DMT, but I was thinking it might be similar to that. I don't know. We'll take some blood work shortly, and see if we can't figure out some more, she said before leaving me. I quietly went back to Ray's room and watched as he fought against the restraints that bound him to the bed. His face was bright red from all the screaming, and he was sobbing like a little kid as he struggled.
It's coming for me.
I didn't bother trying to talk to him. He was still pretty out of it, and he'd been screaming about something coming for him.
Jeff,
he sobbed, looking at me. I saw him trying to reach for my hand.
Don't leave. Don't let him take me, Jeff. Please. You gotta get me out of here. You gotta let me run.
Relax. You're gonna be okay, I promised. I'm gonna stay right here with you. The words didn't seem to do much for him. He just kept fighting and sobbing. At around 4 in the morning, I finally slept. It was in a chair in one of the waiting rooms, since Ray was screaming too loud for me to sleep in his room. But I slept. I figured that when I woke up, Ray would have sobered up a bit, and we could both go home. I was wrong. When I woke up, there was a police officer standing over me, gently shaking my shoulder. My first thought was that the nurse we talked to had reported us for taking drugs, which I thought they weren't supposed to do. But no. He just wanted to ask me a few questions about Ray. My memories of talking to the police are hazy. I don't entirely remember how the conversation went, but I know they'd asked me about where we'd been that night. They asked me if Ray had gotten into any fights, or if I knew anyone who might want to kill him. It wasn't until around halfway through the conversation that I figured out that Ray was dead. never saw the body. It was covered when they wheeled it out of the room. But I saw the blood. Good God. All that fucking blood? More than I thought could fit in a person. From what I'd heard, none of the nurses saw what happened. At some point, the screaming had just stopped, and when they'd come in to check his vitals again, they were greeted by the gory mess that used to be Ray. After the police talked to me, I didn't hear a lot about the investigation into Ray's death. To my knowledge, they never identified any suspects. Hell, I don't think they're even entirely sure about what killed him. I heard somebody say it could have been some kind of animal attack, but I think that got shot down pretty quickly. Since, where the fuck would the animal have come from? The police cleared me as a suspect in the case pretty quickly, since I'd been asleep when it happened, and there were plenty of witnesses who could confirm I was in the waiting room, passed out. I imagine that they talked to some of the people at the nightclub we'd been at too, but I don't think anything ever came of that. I'd been watching Ray for most of the night. He'd been dancing and having a good time. The only time I hadn't been keeping an eye on him was when I was hallucinating, and I highly doubt he picked a fight with someone who'd be willing to break into a hospital to murder him during the hour that I was indisposed. There was literally no logical reason he should have died the way he did. There wasn't a single person I could possibly think of who could have killed him. Person being the operative word here. Before he died, Ray had been screaming about something coming for him. My memories of the hallucinations I had after I took that pill are a little hazy, but I remember the shadowy thing I glimpsed among the crowd a few times. And I remember the pitch that the guy who'd sold us the pills had made. I got a buddy, swears the shit lets him see into other worlds. Call me crazy, but I'm wondering just how true that pitch was. Maybe not everything we saw after taking those pills was a hallucination. Maybe they let us see something, touch something, and they let that something touch us right back. I don't know for sure, but that's the closest thing to an answer that I've got. Either way, I've been sober ever since that night, and I think I'm gonna stay that way. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupeHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow, and see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.